The night everything changed, it was past midnight when KeanuReeves found himself standing in front of Alexandra Grant's door, rain dripping from his hair, heart beating faster than it had in years. He had driven across the city without thinking, guided by nothing but instinct and a quiet message she had sent hours earlier. "I need to talk to you. Please come." He hesitated before knocking. The night was silent except for the soft rhythm of rain against the pavement. Finally, he raised his hand and knocked twice. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then the door opened slowly, and Alexandra appeared. Her hands were trembling, her eyes red as if she had been crying for hours. "Keanu," she whispered, her voice shaking. He took a small step closer. "Alex, what's wrong?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked back into the house, leaving the door open for him to follow. He stepped inside, his boots leaving small wet marks on the wooden floor. The place looked different, paintings covered with cloth, books stacked in messy piles. Candles burned low. Something was off. She sat down on the couch and handed him a folded letter. "It came this morning," she said quietly. "From my father's lawyer." He frowned. "Your father? I thought he's gone," she interrupted softly. "He passed away last week. But that's not the part that broke me. Read it." Keanu unfolded the letter, the paper slightly wrinkled. It was short, handwritten. As he read, his expression changed. The letter revealed that Alexandra's father had left behind a confession, a truth about something he had done years ago that involved Keanu's own family. His stomach twisted. "This can't be real," he whispered. She nodded slowly, tears falling. "It is. He said he made a choice that ruined your father's career. That deal, the one everyone said your dad failed, it wasn't his fault. My father set him up to take the fall." Keanu's jaw clenched. His father's downfall had shaped his entire life. The betrayal, the shame, the distance it created. And now, decades later, the truth had come through a letter from the man responsible. He looked at Alexandra, confusion and pain mixing in his eyes. "Why would he tell you now?" She swallowed hard. "He said he couldn't die with the guilt. He wanted you to know the truth." Keanu sat down, running his hands through his hair. Silence filled the room, heavy and raw. For years, he had made peace with the pain. Now that peace was gone. But when he looked up, he saw something in Alexandra's eyes, fear. Not for herself, but for him. "I didn't want you to hate me," she whispered. He shook his head slowly. "I could never hate you." But deep down, he knew this truth would change everything, not just between them, but within him. The confession that broke the silence. Next morning, Keanu sat by his apartment window, staring at the city below. The rain from the night before had stopped, but the weight in his chest hadn't. Alexandra's father's confession kept replaying in his mind. He had grown up believing his father was the reason their family lost everything: the business, the house, the respect. He had watched his father drown in guilt and isolation until he left, disappearing into silence. Now, years later, Keanu finally knew the truth. His father had been innocent all along. The phone buzzed. It was Alexandra. "Can you come over?" Her voice was soft, almost afraid. When he arrived, she was standing by the window, her hair tied loosely, holding another envelope. "There's more," she said quietly. "The lawyer found another document this morning, a signed agreement. Your father's name is on it, but the signature isn't his." For a moment, Keanu didn't move. "A forged signature?" She nodded. "My father faked it to save his company from collapse. He blamed your father to protect his reputation. It destroyed your family, and he lived with that guilt until the end." He took the paper from her hands, staring at it. His pulse quickened. The signature looked familiar, close enough to fool anyone. "Alexandra," he said, voice trembling. "This could change everything. My father spent years believing he failed. He died thinking he was the villain." She stepped closer. "That's why he left you that note. He wanted the truth to reach you, even if it came through me." Double quotes. Keanu single quotes as emotions collided. Anger, grief, disbelief. But somewhere beneath it all, there was compassion. Alexandra hadn't known. She was carrying her father's guilt, trying to right a wrong she never caused. He sat down, his voice low. "You didn't deserve this either." Tears filled her eyes. He used to say people like you were too good for this world. I didn't believe him. Now I understand what he meant." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Keanu looked at her, remembering all the moments they had shared, laughter, art, long walks through quiet streets. He couldn't let the sins of another man destroy what they had built. Finally, he spoke. "We can't change the past, but we can bring the truth to light." Alexandra looked up, startled. "You mean, I mean we make this public," he said calmly. "Your father wanted peace. Maybe the only way to give him that is by telling the world what really happened." She shook her head, fear in her eyes. "You don't know what this could do. His name, his company, everything he left me could be gone." He stood and took her hand gently. "Then let it go, because some truths deserve to live, even if everything else falls apart." The storm that followed truth 12 days later. Keanu and Alexandra met at a small cafe away from the city lights. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions, where stories could unfold quietly. The letter and the forged document lay on the table between them, fragile and powerful enough to rewrite history. Alexandra looked pale. She hadn't slept. "If we take this public," she said, her voice trembling, "it will destroy everything my father built. His name, his legacy, even my mother's memories." Keanu stared at the papers, his hands clasped. "Alex, your father destroyed my father's legacy to protect his own. If we hide this, we become part of the lie." She looked down, tears forming. "You don't understand. My family will hate me. The press will tear us apart." He reached across the table and touched her hand softly. "I don't want revenge. I just want peace, for my father and for you." But peace doesn't come from silence. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, she said, "You always find strength in pain. I don't know how you do it." He smiled faintly. "Because I've learned that truth, no matter how heavy, always heals more than it hurts." Later that night, Keanu made a call to his old friend, a journalist named Mark, someone he trusted completely. He explained everything, the letter, the signature, the guilt, and the truth. Mark agreed to help investigate, but warned him, if this gets out, the backlash will be brutal. People don't like when heroes turn into villains, especially ones who are already gone. Keanu replied calmly, "Then let them see the difference between truth and hate." Over the next week, Mark worked quietly to verify every document. Meanwhile, Alexandra withdrew from her world. The phone calls stopped, her art studio stayed dark, and she spoke little. Guilt clung to her like a shadow. One evening, Keanu visited her apartment again. She opened the door slowly, just like the first night, her hands shaking. They confirmed it. He said gently, "The documents are real. It's all true." Alexandra sank onto the couch, her voice breaking. "Then it's over. My father's name will be ruined." Keanu sat beside her, his tone steady but filled with care. "Maybe it's time his truth set others free. Your father's actions hurt my family, but his confession can heal it. That's what matters now." She looked at him, eyes full of pain and admiration. "You should hate me, but you don't." He smiled softly. "Hate doesn't fix anything. Kindness does." The next morning, the story went public. Headlines spread fast. Lost confession reveals Hollywood family scandal. The world exploded with questions, opinions, and noise. Some called Alexandra brave. Others called her abetrayer. Keanu stayed silent through it all, refusing interviews, refusing to feed the fire. He only said one thing when asked by a reporter: "Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the only way to keep love alive after truth." The letter from her mother. The world was still buzzing with the scandal. News anchors debated it. Online voices argued, and both families' names were suddenly everywhere. Keanu tried to keep Alexandra away from the noise, but she was breaking under the weight of it. One evening, she called him in tears. "I can't do this anymore, Keanu. I tried to do the right thing, but now I feel like I've lost everything." "You didn't lose everything," he said gently. "You told the truth. That means something, but at what cost?" She whispered. He didn't have an answer. Instead, he drove to her house that night. When she opened the door, she looked exhausted, eyes swollen, hair tied carelessly, hands trembling. In her hand was another envelope. "It came this morning," she said quietly, "from my mother's lawyer. It was written before she died. Keanu's heart tightened. Do you want to read it together? She nodded, and they sat down on the couch. The rain began again outside, soft and rhythmic, as she unfolded the letter. My dear Alexandra, it began. If you're reading this, then your father is gone, and with him, the truth he hid from us all. I loved him, but I knew what he did. I saw the contract, the forged papers, the fear in his eyes. I begged him to confess, but he wouldn't, not because he was selfish, but because he thought protecting you was worth any sin. Alexandra's lips trembled as she read aloud. He told me one night that if the truth ever reached Keanu, it would break him. But I told him the opposite, that Keanu was strong enough to forgive, and that one day, forgiveness would heal you both. If you ever find this letter, tell him that I believed in him even when your father didn't. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She stopped reading for a moment, unable to continue. Keanu gently took the letter and read the final lines himself. Your father was wrong, Alexandra. He thought guilt could protect love, but love only survives through truth. Tell Keanu I am sorry, not as your mother, but as a woman who stayed silent when she should have spoken. The room fell quiet. Alexandra covered her face with her hands. She knew, she whispered. She knew everything and still stayed silent. Keanu sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. She was scared. People do strange things when they're scared of losing the ones they love. How can you forgive so easily? She asked, looking at him through tears. He paused, then said softly, because I've lost enough to know forgiveness is the only thing that keeps love alive. They sat there in silence, surrounded by the sound of rain and the echo of words that had crossed generations. Alexandra looked at him and whispered, You deserve peace, Keanu, and I think my mother wanted me to find it with you. He took her hand gently. Then let's start there. Not with guilt, not with pain, but with truth. The past that refused to stay buried for a few days. Things seemed calm. Keanu and Alexandra tried to build a fragile sense of peace. They spent quiet mornings walking near the ocean, speaking little, letting silence heal what words couldn't. But peace never lasts long when the past has unfinished business. One afternoon, Alexandra's phone rang. The number was unknown. When she answered, the voice on the other end made her freeze. Miss Grant, the man said coldly, I represent investors from your father's old company. We have questions about the documents you and Mr. Reeves released. Your actions have caused millions in losses. We will see you in court. Her hands shook. She hung up and looked at Keanu, panic in her eyes. They're suing me, she whispered. They're blaming me for everything. Keanu's calm face tightened. You did nothing wrong. They just want to scare you. They'll destroy me. Keanu, she said, her voice breaking. They already call me the daughter who betrayed her father. Now they'll call me a thief. He took her hands gently. Then we face it together. The next few weeks were chaos. Media vans parked outside her home. Reporters shouted questions, and strangers online turned cruel. Alexandra stopped leaving the house. She painted at night, desperate to quiet her thoughts. But every brush stroke came out dark and violent. Keanu stayed by her side through it all, cooking for her, protecting her from cameras, sitting with her when she couldn't sleep. He never raised his voice, never left. But behind his calm eyes, he was fighting his own storm. One night, she found him sitting alone in the living room, staring at a photograph of his father. You're not sleeping, she said softly. He didn't look up. My father spent his whole life running from shame that wasn't his. Now you're carrying guilt that isn't yours either. It's not fair. She knelt beside him. What if they win, Keanu? What if we lose everything? He smiled faintly. Then we lose together. But we don't hide. A week later, they walked into the courthouse hand in hand. Reporters shouted their names, cameras flashed, and whispers filled the hallway. But Keanu held her steady. Inside, the company's lawyers presented their case, accusing Alexandra of defamation, emotional damage, and breaking confidentiality. They called her father a visionary misunderstood by his own child. When it was Keanu's turn to speak, he stood up slowly. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. The truth we shared wasn't an attack, he said. It was a confession that came from a dying man's conscience. Alexandra didn't destroy her father's legacy, she completed it. Because sometimes, the greatest act of love is the courage to face what's real. The courtroom fell silent. Alexandra looked at him with tears in her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel afraid. Later that night, as they left the courthouse, a young journalist approached them quietly. She handed Alexandra a flash drive. "You should see this," she said. "It might change everything." Keanu frowned. "What is it?" The journalist whispered. "Proof that your father tried to make things right, and that someone else stopped him. Asterisk the truth that set them free that night." Keanu and Alexandra sat in silence as the rain returned, soft against the windows. The flash drive the young journalist had given them lay on the table, small and ordinary, yet heavy with the weight of something that could change everything. Alexandra hesitated before whispering, "Do you think we're ready to see what's inside?" Keanu looked at her gently. "Truth doesn't wait until we're ready. It just comes." She plugged the drive into her laptop. A folder appeared, labeled Forgiveness. Inside were scanned letters, bank records, and a video dated 3 months before her father's death. Alexandra's breath caught as she clicked play. Her father appeared on the screen, older, weaker, sitting in a hospital room. His voice shook as he spoke. "To whoever finds this, my daughter, maybe Keanu, I'm sorry. I spent my life protecting what didn't matter and hurting what did. I tried to confess years ago, but someone stopped me. My business partner forged a second version of the confession, making it look like your father. Keanu agreed to the fraud. When I found out, it was too late. The damage was done, and I let fear win." Alexandra covered her mouth in shock. "He tried to clear your father's name," she whispered. The man on the screen coughed, his voice fading. "If there's any redemption left for me, it's this. Don't let my mistakes define your future. Tell the truth, but do it with love. Don't turn it into revenge. Please. Forgive me." The video ended. The room fell completely silent. Keanu sat still, staring at the dark screen. Years of pain, confusion, and resentment seemed to fade all at once. His father's memory, his own guilt, all of it had been built on half-truths. Now, at last, the full picture had appeared. He turned to Alexandra, whose eyes were full of tears. "He was trying to make it right," she said softly. Keanu nodded slowly. "And now we can finish what he started." The next morning, they met the journalist and gave her permission to publish everything. The news story went live within hours. The full confession, the proof, the video. It changed everything. The court dropped the lawsuit, the company's name fell, and people finally saw the truth. But Keanu and Alexandra didn't celebrate. They simply stood together on the beach that evening, watching the sun sink into the horizon. "Your father found his peace," Keanu said quietly. She looked at him. "And you found yours." He smiled faintly. "Not found, shared. Because peace means nothing if you don't give it away." She leaned her head on his shoulder. The sound of the waves steady and calm. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "that maybe we were meant to meet for this reason, not to love each other, but to heal what our parents couldn't?" Keanu looked out at the ocean, golden light reflecting in his eyes. "Maybe love and healing are the same thing," he said softly. They stayed there until the sky turned dark, two souls connected not by pain anymore, but by truth and forgiveness that had finally set them free.